In the previous video, we explored whether or not Russia appeared in the Bible. We saw that historically there was a confederation that comprised the nations of Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, known as Rus, which was at one time the largest state in Europe. Its land extended as far east as Moscow, and its capital was Kiev. We learned that at another time the same area was known as Rosh, its name being obviously connected with Rus. Rosh appears in the Bible as being a well-armed nation, which is a feature of modern-day Russia. Rosh is mentioned by Ezekiel, a Jewish prophet, and in this, the second video in our short series, we learn more about what Ezekiel says about Russia and how Russia will be involved in the future of Israel. In doing this, we do not comment on the political aspects of any actions that have been or are being taken, but rather on what the Bible teaches. There is ample historical evidence that Rosh, together with the other nations that are linked with Rosh in Ezekiel's prophecy, represent Russia today. Ezekiel was a Jewish prophet, and his prophecy directed towards the people of Israel, and so God's words through him concern the future of the land of Israel. 3 times he refers to Rosh in relation to future events that would take place in that land. The Bible clearly tells us that Russia will be involved in a significant way in the future of the land of Israel, but what will that involvement be? The connection between Ezekiel's words and modern-day Russia has found its way into the headlines of the Jerusalem Post, one of Israel's leading daily newspapers. In the last week, the references have been prompted by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but it is not that invasion that this is the subject of Ezekiel's prophecy. The prophet clearly predicts a time when it will be Israel that will be under the threat of Russian invasion. The paper goes on to show that not only some Christians, but also some Orthodox Jewish teachers have correctly understood that the prophet is referring to Russia. We should have no doubts that the Bible prophecy will be fulfilled. In chapter 38 of Ezekiel, the prophet shows that Rosh, or Russia, will come down into the land that is brought back from the sword, that is gathered out of many peoples upon the mountains of Israel. He is referring to his previous chapter when he had predicted that Israel would be taken from the countries into which they had been scattered and would be brought back into their own land. They would be living on the mountains of Israel. We know that this prophecy had one fulfillment in the events that took place after the Second World War, when Jews returned to the land of Israel in great numbers, and the present state of Israel was established. Although the land of Israel is small in area, it is a country which is highly influential in world affairs. The prophecy of its people returning to the land is seen in that there were less than 200,000 Jews in the land in 1930. But now, latest estimates are that this number of Jews in the land has risen to almost 7 million. This is an undeniable miracle that has taken place in the fulfillment of what the Bible predicted over 2,000 years earlier through the prophet Ezekiel. Why, may you think, should Russia ever wish to invade Israel? Is such an action likely? It is easy to see why the Jewish people might not sit well in the view of Mr. Putin. The president of Ukraine, who has bravely encouraged his people to resist the military might of Russia, is himself a Jew. A Jewish newspaper described him as Mr. Putin's #1 enemy. In fact, a recent newspaper report suggested that he had escaped 3 assassination attempts in the previous week. The Bible book of Esther tells of a time in the history of Israel when one man, Haman, on failing to receive respect from a Jew, set about to destroy the Jewish people as his revenge. In that case, Haman was himself destroyed. However, Ezekiel does tell us exactly why Russia will seek to invade Israel. He describes it as being to take a great spoil. The language used describes the currency of the day: silver and gold, cattle and goods. Interestingly, we know from our own rising energy prices that Russia is a major exporter of gas and would benefit greatly from a high gas price. And much of that gas is exported to Europe. Just look at another headline. Can Israel become Europe's gas supplier? In recent years, Israel has accessed large gas fields in the Mediterranean Sea and is in the position that it could replace part of Russia's existing supply of gas. In fact, agreements have been reached to build a pipeline to Italy, which stalled as the US president preferred to support Russian gas being piped via Ukraine. Could it be that this will change his mind? Is this the spoil that might attract Russia? And could it provide another motive for the invasion of Israel? The idea of Russia being attracted to dominating Israel is more real than we might have first appreciated, and shows that conditions may be developing that lead to the fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy. On the 24th of February, the same day that the Russian president announced a special military operation in Ukraine, and explosions were heard in a number of cities in Ukraine. On the same day that Russian troops entered Ukraine, an Israeli newspaper reported that Russia had announced that they did not recognize the sovereignty of Israel over the Golan Heights. That this area is of great strategic importance to Israel. Outside of Israeli control, it would provide a high ridge, giving an ideal location for guns and missiles that would endanger a large area of northern Israel. In Israeli hands, it provides significant help in Israel's ability to defend itself from both Syria and Lebanon. These are facts that are well known to Russia. Ezekiel predicted conflict between Israel and Russia, and current events provide ample evidence of the reliability of what God has said through the prophet. It shows us that we can believe that all that the prophet said will surely come to pass. So what else did the prophet say? What was the result of the conflict that he predicted? What is God's answer to war? We hope that you have found this video interesting and would be delighted if you would view the next video in the series, when we will see the part that Jesus will play in the events that are to come on the earth. If you would like to do so, then the link will be posted on the Swansea Christadelphian Facebook page. If you would like to view the previous talk in the series, it is on the Swansea Christadelphian YouTube page. The size of the Bible can make it difficult to know how to start to explore what it has to say, and so we're arranging a series of seminars that have been specially developed to help both new and more experienced readers in being able to read it more effectively. Again, the links will appear on the Swansea Christadelphian Facebook page. If you would like to read more about Bible prophecy, a free booklet is available online. All these resources are free and without obligation. As in all things, all these arrangements are subject to the will of Almighty God. Thank you again for watching this video.